Hey, hi, hello ladies, how's it going? Hope you're doing good, hope you're doing well. Me, I'm doing fantastic, thanks for asking. And it really was only a matter of time before I had to make the video that I'm about to make today. Because Rolling Stone put out a top 100 punk albums and their choices have enraged me, okay? So they're becoming the most recent enemy on my list. They are going into my rogues gallery, and today we're gonna go through their top 100, not really with a fine-tooth comb or anything like that, but I'm gonna give you the overall rundown about why this thing makes me so mad. There are some good picks in here, not gonna lie. There are some pretty deep cuts that I would not have thought of, and for that, I will tip the cap. I'm not really wearing a cap today. This is a toque. I'll tip the toque. There we go. But there are some questionable choices on here. Not only are they personal differences of mine, but I would say they are egregious choices in the world of punk rock. And before we get into it, I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Dan Frampton, all one word, the O's a zero, and I am the internet's most ruthless gatekeeper. And today, it's all about Rolling Stone and their top 100 list over here. And here it is, right here. Starting with 100, we got DRI with Dealing With It. And this is a good pick. At 100, maybe I would have put this down a little bit higher on the list. But, you know, I gotta say, good job, Rolling Stone. All right. But right after that, you got Paramore. So you're telling me that this Paramore record is a better punk album than anything DRI's ever done? Already, we're not off to a great start, okay? You could have flipped these and I wouldn't have even said a thing, all right? If you put Paramore as the 100th best punk album, I'd have been like, all right, interesting choice. Not really sure what kind of list we're getting into right now, but officially saying that Brand New by Paramore that came out in 2009 is better than a 1985 pure punk record by DRI, I'm not exactly sure if I'm vibing with that. There is some serious decisions being made that I disagree with right off the bat. Right now, at 98 though, I'm gonna say this is actually kind of cool to see this record here. It's a split between two bands, The Faith and Void, and there's connections to like Ian MacKaye and Minor Threat and all that sort of stuff. So it's like, okay, we're getting a good pick here. So you got basically Paramore sandwiched between these two really good choices that make up a pretty solid bottom of the list. But then we're gonna go into this, Naked Raygun, Jettison. Gotta say, I'm not overly familiar with this, don't really have so much to say here, but this drove me crazy. I went into a tailspin when I first saw this. I had to like breathe and meditate for days after seeing this right now. I could have made this video when this article dropped, I don't know, a little bit last week or whatever, but I had to take some time. Okay, I was an emotional wreck seeing The Shape of Punk to Come coming in at 96. 96 people. Refused 1998 album, The Shape of Punk to Come, coming in at 96. And you're reading what they say here, and they're saying that it's a indisputable masterpiece. What? How are you putting an indisputable masterpiece at 96, just a couple spots below this Paramore record? Now, I don't mean to be dogging on Paramore. I actually respect Paramore quite a bit, but we're talking about a punk rock list over here, and I have a couple things highlighted. These are albums in the whole punk genre that fall under an umbrella, all right? And clearly defined by this article itself, not by me. It's saying punk rock started in 1976 in New York and claiming that the Ramones record is ground zero for punk rock, right? So we're looking at a punk rock thing over here. And not to take away any of the punk stripes from Hayley Williams and Paramore, because they do have them, for sure. And at 99, this is actually a pretty good choice, right? It's just the ordering of them. And to be honest, I wouldn't argue if all these choices here at the bottom of the list were scooted up a little higher. In particular, this fucking Refused record. I couldn't even believe it, man. Not only is it an indisputable masterpiece, this record over here is a thing of legend. This thing has mythos behind it, and not only that, every song is so good. And this record over here tells you that hardcore doesn't just need to sound like people dragging their knuckles across pavement all the time. This can be experimental. This could be art. This could be a real expression of something. And this record is. This is a protest record. This is a statement record. And this record is nothing but drama from top to bottom. I absolutely love it. And 96 is egregious. Total Enemy. It's cool to see more recent bands like Downtown Boys with full communism coming in on here. Pretty good. And here's another thing that I don't necessarily agree with. Now this record over here by Idol's Brutalism might be their most punk sounding stuff, but this is post-punk. This is absolutely 100% post-punk stuff, and to just slap it here with all these other punk bands is a little jarring, not gonna lie. And that kind of theme is going to continue, but even if we're working with those parameters where post-punk works, and I will give them that, I will give them post-punk. When it comes to proto-punk, I'm not going to give them the bone because that opens the door for so much stuff. But if we're going to be including post-punk into this, Idols don't make the top 100. Sure, they're a current band going with this kind of sound and they are filling rooms and that kind of thing, but top 100 of all time, punk albums? I'm not so sure if I'm picking this one. Sick of It All, however, I am picking. And at 92, I don't know if this is even fair. This record is pretty sick. Blood, Sweat, and No Tears by Sick of It All that came out in 1989. This is the epitome of that knuckle dragging across pavement kind of hardcore that I was talking about earlier, but it's done so very, very well. Then I don't have too much to say here. You got The Damned at 90, which feels wrong. You got the Angry Samoans at 89. I'll give them that. That's fine. They are a fun band. They're not really a serious band, so 89 is fine here. But if the Angry Samoans are going to be here at 89, then 7 Seconds are going to be on here somewhere, right? That might be a little bit of foreshadowing. I'm not sure. Stay tuned. Social Distortion coming in at 88. I'm not sure if I'm putting Social Distortion on my top 100 list, but they do have a lot of records. They have been around for a long time. They have a ton of fans and a very specific kind of sound and that kind of thing. So I'll accept it. And at 88, that's fine. That's kind of whatever. This Negative Approach record though, Tied Down, absolute classic. This one has got to be on every single top 100. And at 87, I'm not going to really argue with it really. 24 Hour Revenge Therapy by Jawbreaker at 86 though. I don't know, dude. Did you listen to the record, by the way? It might be a little bit better than 86. That's all I'm saying. I wouldn't be putting it in my top 10 or anything like that, but 86 seems a little fucked up. But here's where I'm really scratching my head, okay? Not only scratching my head, I might be banging my head through brick walls over here with this pick. And it's not that the MC5 aren't great, but they're not a punk band, first and foremost. Sure, they have a lot of punk ethos woven into their ideology, but here's another thing that I'm scratching my head about. 1969. By your own parameters, this is not a record that belongs on here. What are you doing? This is just you being a snooty little journalist being like, nah, this is actually punk. I hate the way that this sounds. And if you wanted to like do an honorable mentions of things that aren't quite punk, but are punk, then do that before the top 10 kicks off. You know what I mean? Do an honorable mentions section and then put this at the top of it. Sure, whatever. But Kick Out the Jams by MC5 coming in at number 85 on our best punk rock albums of all time list. I don't know, dude. That makes you enemy worthy. So pretentious. This is such a fucking snooty pick. All right, but whatever. Then I don't got much to say for the next couple, but then we get down to 83 and it's Blink-182's Dude Ranch. Like, okay, I guess it is my favorite Blink record. Well, I don't know, man. All their early stuff I kind of like quite a bit, but this Blink-182 record means a lot to me nostalgically, you know? I kind of came up listening to this thing. So it might be controversial of me to say, but I'd put this record even higher on this list. Probably top 50. Controversial take, I know. Don't get out your pitchforks though. Okay, so we got this record over here. Priests at number 82. I didn't hear this thing, okay? I had no idea what this was when this came across my table over here. So I had to put it on. And what did I realize? I realized that this does not belong here, not by a long shot. This is another just pick to pick 'em, you know? Oh, let's put Priests on here. They're the 82nd best punk record of all time. This thing came out in 2018 and it does not tick any of the boxes. I have no idea why this is even here. Not a clue. It's just like anything underground, I guess, is punk rock at this point. I don't fucking get it. And then right after that, you got Discharge. Come on, dude. What are we doing? We're going Priests at 82 and then Discharge at 81? What fucking list am I looking at right now? This is crazy. Are we looking at a best punk records of all time list? It sure does look like that when I'm looking at records like this coming in at number 81. Discharge. Hear nothing, see nothing, say nothing. Hell yeah. Big fan. Pretty sick. And then Priests from 2018. Give me a break, dude. If you wanted some skate punk representation, here it is. Coming in at number 80. NoFX Punk in Drublic. This isn't even NoFX's best record. This might be their third or fourth best record. It's just their most popular record. So you're going out there with all these snooty picks like MC5 and Priests, but you're gonna put the most surface level NoFX record on here? What are you doing over here? Apply the same hipster energy all the way throughout. Everybody knows that NoFX's hipster pick is so long and thanks for all the shoes. And then Agnostic Front at 79. That's kind of cool. And here's something that I did not hear, and I'm kind of embarrassed to admit it before looking at this list, and it's a compilation called No New York by Brian Eno. Now, Brian Eno is a producer, legendary songwriter guy. 4 bands came together on this compilation, and I can't believe I haven't heard this before. This might be the most punk rock thing I've ever heard in my entire life. This thing is hard as fuck to listen to sometimes, bordering on painful. I was listening to it, right? And then all of a sudden this squeak came through that literally hurt my ears. I was like, oh man, oh, that's so punk. You got 4 bands on here. The Contortions, Teenage Jesus and the Jerks, Mars, and DNA. I don't know if they did this intentionally, but to put a record at number 78 that came out in 1978 feels intentional. And to me, that kind of discredits an entire list. You know, you're just putting something there because it's the same number? That doesn't seem well thought out. And after I listened to this thing, I was like, no, this is like one of the best punk records of all time. This thing's incredible. I'd be putting this top 25, easy. And then Crass at 77? What list am I looking at? Jesus Christ, I'm so angry. And then this Dead Boys record at 76, that's fine. I love this thing, but 76 seems a little low. Here's another fucking record I would not have put on this fucking list. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people consider Blondie to be a punk band because they came up in that CBGB New York kind of punk rock kind of thing out of there in Greenwich Village. Lot of history, very gritty, edgy lyrics, over-sexualized, but to make a political statement kind of thing. And yeah, all that stuff about Blondie is punk. Everything except the music. You listen to this thing, this is a pop album. This is 100% pop music. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Pop is fine. It just doesn't belong on a top 100 punk records of all time. And there's gonna be another pop record on here, at least 1 or 2. Don't have much to say about these 70s over here. Now, I normally wouldn't have included compilations on a list like this, but that No New York record really opened my eyes. And if we're gonna be putting compilations on here, Oi, the album definitely belongs on a list like this. This is all the Oi bands that you can think of from 1980 back in the UK, all put together, packaged up by a major record label. EMI put out a Oi compilation in the year 1980, and that sentence alone makes this thing amazing. And because of what it did to establish Oi as a subgenre of a subgenre and spread that sound over the seas, I gotta respect it. I don't know if I'd put it at 72 though. Maybe I'd be putting this one a little bit lower on the list. Maybe somewhere in the 80s, 90s maybe. But still, monumental, super important, and just a good old fun time to listen to. Now, I wasn't expecting to see Soul Glow come onto here. Now, I love Soul Glow. This might be one of my favorite records of all time. Diaspora Problems by Soul Glow coming in at 71. This record came out in 2022, and when I listened to it, I remember exactly where I was. I was right here, but my whole setup was oriented the other way, like I was looking at that wall. And I had the headphones on, and every song, I was just freaking out how awesome it was. Going absolutely insane here in my little studio room. Don't know if it makes my top 10, but it might upon further reconsideration. Then you got a couple other things I don't got a lot to say. It is really cool to fucking see SSD on this list though, coming in at 69. And then Dead Kennedys at 68. Maybe I'd put that a little bit higher. Fresh fruit for rotting vegetables. Let's give Jello Biafra a little bit more flowers than this. Then Dropkick at 67, La Tigre at 65, then a bunch of stuff that I don't really have a lot to say about. It's cool to see some of this stuff pop up, like Fear, Against Me, Flipper. This Flipper record should be a little bit higher. Bunch more stuff I don't really have a lot to say about. Public Image coming in at 56 though. Pretty stupid. This I do have something to say about. Operation Ivy, Energy, coming out 1995 is a weird way to put that, but yeah, I guess 1995. Started in 87, ended in 89, but 1995, sure. But to me, I'm not gonna spoil it because I'm gonna give you my top 10 at the end of this video. And to have this thing at 55, I find to be absolutely a slap in the face. Do you understand how good of an album this is? How well these songs are written, how important they were, and how absolutely punk rock it all is. Jesus Christ, 55 is crazy for that. The Cramps, 54, nuts. Devo, another one of those bands that it's like, are you really gonna be putting Devo on a fucking punk list? And yeah, they are kinda punk as fuck in every single way except for the way they sound. But it's a little bit post-punk, and post-punk is fine because it came after the year that we established, which was 1976 in New York. And to finish off the bottom 50, you got And Out Come the Wolves by Rancid at 51. That's a little bit interesting to keep Rancid just outside the top 50. I'm not really gonna argue at that point. I can see where you're coming from. But again, this isn't even my favorite Rancid record. It's just their most popular and influential one. But inside the top 50, we got Circle Jerks. Dude, of course you gotta have this record. This is a classic. Modern Lovers, I don't know if I'd put this top 50. This Team Dretch album, I don't know if I'd put it top 50, but you know, I can see where you're coming from. No problem, no problem, no problem. Yeah, is coming in at fucking 46, just below Bad Religion at 45. That is such an interesting list. Bunch more stuff I don't have anything really to say about. This is all fine. Yeah, you're gonna see all these in like top 50 lists or whatever. Rites of Spring at 41. This one is fucking crazy, dude. This is insane to see Turnstile with Glow On coming in at number 39 in a top 100 punk albums of all time. Glow On is Turnstile's least good album. It is their worst one. And I'm not even here saying that their like whole dream pop kind of shift or whatever was the wrong move, because their newest record is even better than this one. But nothing beats old Turnstile to me. Even when I listen to it now, I'm like, yeah, this was really good. Really good music back in the day, but Turnstile now, they are no longer really my vibe. I don't listen to them too much. And then when I run into Bratmobile before I run into Bikini Kill, I'm scratching my head, right? Because yes, Bikini Kill is the more popular, more influential Riot Grrrl band, but Bratmobile is the better band. Better songs, better energy, more succinct messaging. But I know I'm gonna be running into Bikini Kill a little bit higher up on this list. But in my opinion, that's not how these bands should be slotted. Misfits at 35 might be a little crazy. Another fucking compilation over here. Here's another choice that makes me angry because it doesn't even fit within their own parameters. Velvet Underground in 1968. This is what we call proto-punk. Punk before punk. The bands and artists that inspired the movement. This record, White Light, White Heat, came out 10 years before the parameters set by your own article. Now, if we're gonna open the door to proto-punk and all the stuff that came before it, my God, we could go back so far. We could go back to the 40s and include Woody Guthrie if we wanted to. Those early Dylan albums are definitely punk records. But either way, Velvet Underground can't be having them here. So there's so many slots on this list that would be opened up to other bands and other scenes that completely got overlooked by Rolling Stone. You're making a punk record list, and you didn't even look at the underground even a little bit. These are all above the sea level bands, basically, if we're looking at one of those iceberg charts. Well, some of these are a little bit below sea level, but we're not getting a lot of really underground stuff. A lot of that local and regional stuff that define genres that would then explode. That's the kind of stuff we need to be highlighting here. But no, we're gonna put Big Black on here, not even Big Black's best record, and to be honest, this might be a little bit of a hot take, but I can't stand Steve Albini's musical output with Big Black. I don't like them, okay? They would not be making my top 100. They wouldn't be making my top 1,000. Sorry if that's a hot take. Steve Albini, not my guy. Not my guy, not by a long shot. Joy Division, 1979, post-punk, but again, it's post-punk, so fine, I'll allow it. But if you're gonna be including Joy Division, putting them at 31 is a little crazy. And of course, it's just like the surface level records. And then Fugazi, of course, gotta love Fugazi. Every top 100 list is gonna have this Replacements record on it at a different spot. 29 is fine. The Germs at 28, whatever. This Peter Ubu record is another just snooty, hipster, pretentious pick. This is not the 27th best punk rock album of all time. I'll tell you that much for free, and I'll tell it to you right now. Not that it's a bad album. 27? Top 100 of all time? I don't think so, bud. Don't think so. Then we got our first of 2 Ramones records making the top 100. Dude, if we're gonna be doing that, you could put every one of the Ramones records here just at a different spot on this list. But sure, Rocket to Rush It, 1977. There's a couple really popular songs on here, like Sheena is a punk rocker, Teenage Lobotomy. But this isn't normally the record that makes the top 100 lists of most people when they make lists like this. I listened to this Raincoats record, I don't have a lot to say about it. Mission to Burma is always on a list like this, but it just doesn't connect with me. I can't listen to this record all the way through. It is solid, and the artistic expression that's going on there is really good, blah, 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 but it's just not my thing. You know what is my thing? This next thing over here. Coming in at 23, The Descendants, Milo Goes to College. I'd be putting this thing a lot higher. This is definitely one of my top 10 favorite records of all time. So 23, that makes you an enemy of me, buddy. And then Minor Threat, this is another top 10 of mine, coming in at 22. Terrible choices. Terrible, awful choices over here at Rolling Stone. And then Television coming in right below the top 20. Not gonna be putting Television in there, but this is another one of those records you see on all these top 100 lists. It's fine, it's not really 100% my thing. It is 100% the hipster pick though. When people are like, oh man, punk rock in 1977, I love the Ramones. And then the hipsters, mostly the West Coast hipsters, are gonna be like, have you heard Television or X? And that's fine, they're both great bands. Green Day's Dookie coming in at 20, ridiculous, but yeah. Fine, whatever. Bikini Kill at 19. Switch them in Bratmobile right now, and I'm okay with that. And I was going through this whole list thinking that they were gonna snub the Buzzcocks. But the Buzzcocks, I'm happy to say, have not been snubbed. There would not be any pop punk the way that it exists today without bands like the Descendants and the Buzzcocks. So thank you guys for existing. And that's a fine placement, 18. I can definitely see this making a top 10 of a lot of people's list though. And I'm gonna listen to those lists. Bad Brains at 17 is crazy, stupid, moronic, absolutely out of touch. New York Dolls, record that came out in 73. I'm gonna throw my computer monitor out the fucking window. This is a punk rock list, not proto-punk. If we're opening it up to proto-punk, you could fill this with hundreds of more records before we even get to the punk stuff. The aforementioned X at 14. I don't hate you so much for that. Husker Du coming in at 13. That's a fine pick, fine placement. Patti Smith, great record. Proto-punk extraordinaire, okay? If we're doing a proto-punk album list, yeah, this thing can make number 1 and I'm not arguing with you. But in the context that you set by your own parameters in your own article, it drives me crazy that this is here. You just smushed the proto-punk list with the punk list. And to me, that's just a logical fallacy. And then gatekeeping Black Flag just out of the top 10. I love to see it. That is great. Sorry, Henry Rollins. You're number 11. Black Flag, Damaged. This is my favorite Black Flag record though. Well, Black Flag full length. The EPs that came before it, I like a lot more. And I would have included them on this over this record, for sure. Okay, here we go. The Clash at number 10. Yes, The Clash, punk band, absolutely. This album over here, London Calling, pop album. Why are your top 10 punk albums? Now, I wouldn't have been so mad about this pick if it was lower down, you know, somewhere in like the top 50, maybe 45. I'm like, okay, well, they're gonna be getting to the actual Clash punk record later, right? Spoiler alert, The Clash have 2 spots in the top 10. Yes, Joe Strummer, absolutely important figure in punk rock. 100%, it would not be the thing it is without Joe motherfucking Strummer, okay? But to have 2 spots in the top 10 for The Clash just shows me, man, that this was written by someone a little bit more pretentious than they are knowledgeable. Just saying. And then, how are we gonna fill out this top 10? How about another pop album? Perfect. Nirvana themselves would describe Nevermind as a pop album, and it is. It might be a pretty heavy pop album, a very good pop album, for sure, but Nirvana, Nevermind, this is a pop record. I would consider Nirvana a punk band, 1,000,000%, okay? Absolutely. And they have put out punk records before and after this one. This one, though, is just not the punk one. This is the one where they got paid. This is the one where they finally cashed the check, and God bless them for it. And then the Stooges coming in at number 8. Oh my God, dude. When did this record come out? Was it before or after the whole punk movement started? Oh, Well before, of course, 1970. Now, if you're gonna be throwing proto-punk in here, you gotta be talking about the Stooges. It would have been a snub if they didn't, but I would argue that proto-punk should not be on this list. I would also say that compilations, pop albums, and post-punk records don't belong here either, barring one exception for each of those kinds of records. But they're just littered in here all over the place when we could have really highlighted some good underground punk music. Pissing me off, bro. Sex Pistols at number 7. That's kind of a funny pick. Not gonna lie, putting Sex Pistols at number 7, just to troll fucking John Lydon or whatever. Hilarious. I would have put it at number 11, just outside of the top 10. I don't really like the record that much. I mean, there are some good songs on it, not gonna lie. And maybe when I say I don't like it, I'm coming from a little bit of a contrarian, maybe, potentially, but I don't listen to this album. I've hardly ever listened to this album. Of course I have listened to it. Everybody has heard this whole thing from beginning to end, mostly against their will. I'll tell you that, that's at least my case with it. I do love the album cover though. It is one of the best album covers of all time. It's just an example of how to do something really simple, but something really effective and iconic that's gonna last the test of time. Everybody in the world knows this fucking album cover. Then seeing The Wire at number 6. Normally I see this record here, The Wire and Flipper, really close together. So seeing them so far apart on this album list is very crazy. Sleater Kinney at number 5. This is a throw my computer monitor out the window moment as well. It is a good record. I like this record. It's an amazing album. A lot of really good songs on here. 5th best punk record of all time? Get the fuck out of here. Absolutely. How are you saying that with a straight face? You can't be. And then The Clash with their second appearance in the top 10. Number 4 with their self-titled. I wouldn't argue if anybody put this at their number 1. Great album, super important, is a punk album, most importantly. But then what's their top 3? Minutemen, top 3. Good choice. Solid choice. Double nickels on the dime. One of my favorite records of all time. Number 3, super solid choice. X-Ray Specs at number 2, like X, Husker Du, and X-Ray Specs are normally all kind of lumped in the same kind of grouping or whatever. So that's kind of cool to see this at number 2. So what would be number 1? It's obviously the Ramones, right? The Ramones self-titled. Yeah, the one that started it all. Yeah, that's the one. And this one just seems like they put it at number 1 because they didn't want to face the backlash of not putting the Ramones at number 1 because Ramones are clearly the number 1 best band. And yes, this record does make my top 10, but it is not my number 1. So that's their top 100 list, right? And there are a lot of records on there, in my opinion, that don't belong there at all, and entire scenes got snubbed. I'm just gonna give you a couple examples of some scenes and bands from those scenes that got snubbed from the top 100 punk albums of all time. First, I'm gonna talk about hardcore. For new hardcore, how did you not include Trapped Under Ice? If you're gonna be putting Turnstile on there, Trapped Under Ice is the nucleus band of all of that. You're gonna talk about New York hardcore as well, but you're not gonna put Madball on there. Very interesting to me, very head scratching. No Cro-Mags either. Cro-Mags aren't really my band, but that's kind of cool. Very fun. Did you just leave them off because what? Because why? Interesting. No mention of Converge or Youth of Today? What? What are you talking about? You're gonna talk about punk rock music, underground, hardcore music, and no Youth of Today. This is no list for me. And then moving a little bit farther into the 90s or whatever, are you gonna really tell me you're ignoring all of Midwest emo? No mention of American football or Sunny Day Real Estate on here whatsoever is so crazy to me. So if we're talking about emo, let's go a little bit more underground than that. Screamo. Screamo is a very prevalent, long-term, long-lasting subgenre within this entire community, and you didn't even mention any Screamo. If you were gonna mention Screamo, where are the Swing Kids? Swing Kids started it all. The dyeing your hair black, the cutting it like Spock, the wearing small clothes, the studded belt, the tight-ass pants. You know the look that ended up dominating the early 2000s, right? Well, the Swing Kids started that in the 90s, and you're not even gonna mention the Swing Kids. That pisses me off. I'm sorry. And then no folk punk. No folk punk on here. As a folk punk guy, and I'm not really an expert in the genre, I just play it, okay? When I pick up the guitar, it comes out as folk punk. But to talk about folk punk and not talk about Pat the Bunny is stupid as hell. Pat the motherfucking Bunny, with projects like Wingnut Dishwashers Union and Johnny Hobo and the Freight Trains. Incredible stuff, just absolutely snubbed. But my favorite folk punk band is probably the Taxpayers. The 2010s punk rock revival got completely overlooked. No Joyce Manor? That's crazy, dude. Joyce Manor is definitely one of the top 100 best punk bands of all time. And their self-titled is definitely one of the best records that they did. Super solid stuff, just completely overlooked. And now if we're talking about just regular old punk rock music, no Reagan Youth, no JFA, no RKL, no 7 Seconds, bro. Crazy list, crazy. You had room for SSD, DRI, no GBH though. Interesting, very interesting. No UK subs or US bombs either. Snubbed, they're all snubbed. And I could go on and on and on. You probably have a couple suggestions too that I'm even snubbing in this snub section. What are some communities that completely got overlooked by Rolling Stone? Rolling Stone, music journalism for the plebs and the normies. But now we're at the end of the video and I'm gonna give you my top 10. Now, this is gonna be a very controversial top 10. This is based on my enjoyment of the art held within these records, not necessarily the 10 best records of all time. However, I almost would argue that my taste would dictate the 10 best punk albums of all time. But there are a couple choices in there that would definitely be argued to the nth degree. So I understand this would not be everybody's top 10. But coming in at number 10 was Rolling Stone's 96th best record, Refused. The Shape of Punk to Come. After that is another record that they included in here, but I have it way higher. Coming in at number 9 is Milo Goes to College by The Descendants. Next up at number 8, I'm not gonna call it a snub because I don't know, that whole Swedish punk rock stuff is not gonna make everybody's top 100. But Swedish punk music, I love it, and I think Randy made the best Swedish punk album of all time, and it's called Can't Keep a Good Band Down. So many bangers. This thing is a perfect album. I would say all the records I'm about to talk about in my top 10 are perfect albums. If you haven't listened to Can't Keep a Good Band Down by Randy and you like melodic, catchy, pop punk infused punk rock music, then you're gonna love it. And because English is their second language, the lyrics are amazing. So funny, so interesting, so intriguing, so simple and to the point. I love Randy. Well, I love this one record. The records after that, not so much. But Can't Keep a Good Band Down, top 10. But a band I like a little bit more than that, and a record I like a little bit more than that, comes to us from Kid Dynamite at number 7 with their record Shorter, Faster, Louder. And it is all of that. A bunch of really short, snappy, punk rock, hardcore flavored songs. My God, dude. I can listen to this record from morning to night, nonstop. It is absolutely the most Dan Frampton coded music of all time. Again, that's Shorter, Faster, Louder by the band Kid Dynamite at number 7. At number 6, Bad Brains by Bad Brains. I don't know how this wouldn't make anybody's top 10. This is one of the top 10 best records ever made, no matter what the genre is. Coming in at my number 5 was actually Rolling Stone's number 3. Double Nickels on the Dime by the Minutemen. Dude, their time was taken from us way too soon. The stuff that Minutemen could have done if they weren't befallen with such tragedy, I don't even want to imagine that what if scenario. Coming in at number 4 is Rolling Stone's number 1, Ramones by the Ramones. You can't have a top 10 without this record. I just don't think it is the best punk record ever made. It might be the most important one, yes, for sure. But it is my 4th favorite one. The one that I like a little bit more than that, coming in at number 3, Shed by Title Fight. Now I understand a lot of people might be saying, man, how do you even have Title Fight on here? Blah, 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 blah. Title Fight are one of my favorite bands of all time, and Shed is an incredible record. A lot of people might say, it's really derivative of that kind of like 90s. Shut up. Shut the hell up. It's amazing. It's the best. I love it. Number 3, Shed by Title Fight. And then my top 2. Number 2 is The First 2 7-inches by Minor Threat. Now it really was a toss up for me for these top 2 records. And depending on the day, I'm gonna say something different. But today, my number 1 favorite album of all time is that Operation Ivy one. The one from 1995, Energy. What can I say? That's my top 10, bros. Argue about the picks down below. But in particular, argue about Rolling Stone's picks because they are dumb idiots. And I am the most ruthless gatekeeper. So there you have it, definitive punk rock list, dissected and rearranged in the best way possible. I need those likes, I need those subs, comment down below, and until my next upload, watch another upload. Okay, goodbye, see you later, and have a good one.